We are live.
Yeah.
Hey, Thomas, guess
Hey,
what?
Eric. What?
60 Minutes is almost 49 years old. 60
Really?
Minutes. And this is
Our 49th
episode 60.
episode?
This
Oh,
is
60.
episode 60. 60 Minutes. Get it? 40. How you doing, brother?
Oh, I am good. It's been a while. It's been a couple weeks now.
It's been a very long time. I'm very happy to be back in San Diego. The last time we recorded, I had made it back to San Diego. I was literally in and out. I drove in Friday night and left back out Sunday. This time I'm here a little bit longer, here for a couple weeks before I head into PHP Tech. My little kitten, Flojo, jumping around behind me. You like that? I'm here a little bit longer. I'm heading to PHP Tech here in a couple weeks. And, I wanted to share with you, look what came in. Yay! Stickers!
Yay!
Got the PHP Ugly stickers.
Nice. Not just buttons, but stickers now too.
Not just buttons. So yeah, we've got the buttons and we've got the stickers. I've got to get you a care package out since you're not going to Tech.
Yeah, I can't make Tech this year. My son's junior high graduation is interrupting that one. So
not a real thing. Not a real thing. I keep telling you. You tell your wife. It's not a junior high graduation. Isn't a real thing. It's just called passing. You know.
Yeah. Every time I say that, he starts crying. And it probably shouldn't be like the last thing I say to him before bedtime, but
these millennials, I tell you,
yeah,
they want prizes for everything. Oh, you didn't have to go to summer school? I'll throw graduation for you. Jeez.
You go to summer camp. Just drive him out in the wilderness and drop him off.
Oh man, so yeah, back from Phoenix, or back from Arizona. Not even really Phoenix. I kind of wish it was Phoenix. I after being there for a couple weeks, I started getting a hankering for Five Guys, and I pulled up Google Maps and asked for the closest Five Guys, and it was like an hour away in any direction I drove. And of course, there's about 50 of them in Phoenix, but Phoenix is about an hour away. So it became. I started to call it my purgatory. Arizona City is my purgatory. I tell you. But it was fun. I mean, not fun, but it was what it was. So happy to be back in San Diego. Happy to be back with the family for a couple weeks before heading to PHP Tech. If you're going to PHP Tech and you happen to listen to the show and you come across me, ask me for a pin, ask me for stickers. I'll
ask
carry
him to
them
stop
around.
touching you.
Call security. Whatever. However you got to do it. What have you been up to, Thomas?
Oh, the usual. Had a project that really, really ran over on time, unfortunately. So, been pulling the late nights and the early mornings. But friend of the show, Matt Lance, you might know him.
Everybody's a friend of the show to you. Yeah. Matt has never listened to our show.
He's officially a friend of the show now, because he has added me to the Laravel Collective to maintain the Iron Q package.
Just because he has a poor judgment of character does not make him a friend of the show.
No, but it is one of our primary requirements.
Wait, so you're part of the Laravel Collective now?
I am part of the Laravel Collective now. It was just tweeted out today, and yeah, right now I've only got the job of maintaining the Iron Q, which I haven't even gotten to doing the big merges that it needs. I have to educate myself now on tagging for Composer and all of those wonderful things.
Do you guys have a secret handshake or something?
I don't think so.
See,
we don't wear pants.
I thought Matt and I were friends. He's never asked me to be part of his collective. Jeez.
He asked you to ask me. So you must be a friend because he contacted me through you.
I know. He actually said he needed somebody with talent, and if I could talk to you, I'm like, okay.
Oh, it's not a good friend.
No, congratulations on that. I'm happy. Happy you're a part of it. Excited. I know it's funny how all this seems to tie together. That's a library that we'd worked with in the past. You talked about in the past, and lo and behold, you are now maintainer of it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited about that, and terrified because I've never had people in the position to contact me and say you broke everything.
That's right. Our business is down because of you.
Yeah. So fingers crossed. There's already
And
already PHP unit tests. So
and
can't
our buddy John is not with us tonight. He's not feeling well. He's you know how it is. He came back from vacation and all of a sudden isn't feeling great, in air quotes for our listeners.
Yeah,
so
that's always happens
he's
to
still
me is when
recovering
I
from his
go on
vacation.
vacation.
Yeah.
Immediately
Yeah.
need an extra couple days afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. So we wish him the best, but I did want to mention that he's been published again in PHP Tech magazine. Were you
Now,
aware of this?
It looked like he was featured in some way. It wasn't one of those back of the page, small boxes that you can buy to advertise your services. He actually wrote an article.
Come to your house, give you private massages? No,
Yeah.
not this time. This time he wrote words. He wrote several words. He did a well, I don't know if it's a feature piece. He did a piece on Vue.js, and they tweeted out the article. It's a pretty lengthy article. Lots of words. I read some of them, not all of them. Just
we're not strong readers.
Yeah, but yeah, that's like I think this is like the third time he's been published in PHP Tech. Tell you, you guys are outshining me. I'm kind of envious. You're part of the collective now. You got John publishing papers. What am I doing?
Well, he takes a lot of sick days.
He does.
He's doing all of his writing while he's grievously ill.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been good. Interesting, like I said, being out in Arizona City with doing some hanging out with my dad. We've talked about in the past, has some dementia, which is always kind of an exciting thing. I'm sitting there working, and all of a sudden the guy decides, he's going to leave the house and start walking back to Maryland. It's like, yeah, man, probably not a good idea, especially when it's 110 degrees outside.
Yeah, he wouldn't even make it to Five Guys.
Yeah, that's no kidding, man.
There's an elder care home in Norway which has a fake bus stop out front. Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't. It seems genius, though.
Part of the nurses' routes is just to go out and pick up the people who are sitting at the bus stop.
Gee, that's genius. and it's really a fake bus stop?
Yeah, it's a bus stop with no service line connected to it at all. It's just looks like a bus stop. So people wander out of the building, sit down, and wait for a bus to come. Nurse comes and throws them back in the building.
Oh, that is awesome. Maybe that's what I should have done. Put a fake Uber in front of the house. Just park my truck in front of the house, put an Uber sticker on it. Gotta walk out and sit in there. Am I seeing the driver? I love my dad. I love him. Love the guy.
Dads are fun.
Yeah. All right.
Now, by the time this airs, it will have been Mother's Day.
This is true. So May for me is personally a very busy month. My wife's birthday starts May off. My birthday follows it up. So my birthday was actually Monday, and then Mother's Day is in. Thank you. And Mother's Day is in May, and then my wife and I's anniversary. We got married in May. So May is for my wife is she just gets showered with gifts. She's got her birthday, she's got Mother's Day, she's got the wedding anniversary. And then on top of all that, I'm not even in town for the wedding anniversary or anniversary this year. I'm at PHP Tech, so she gets a nicer gift. I get that out of town tax added to whatever gift I give her. So she's making out. I don't know what I'm gonna do for the wedding anniversary this year, but yeah, she always makes out.
Yeah, I think all I try to do is just get rid of the kids for our anniversary. And if we can succeed at doing that, then take a nap and then go to the bar.
Thomas, I just picture you like giving your wife an anniversary card saying, "Honey, another year without the clap. Yay!"
No, can't give her that card anymore.
Oh boy!
You know why they call it the clap?
No idea.
Ask me after the show. It is a horrifying name for a disease.
Oh, do we want to get into the news? What are we doing here?
I'd love to. You know what that was?
What's that?
That was sarcasm.
That was sarcasm?
Yeah, you know how you can tell?
No.
Because I told you it was sarcasm.
All right.
I added this to our list a while ago, but I love this. Reddit, which is a pretty large community, has the ability to self-tag your own posts.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things you can tag it is sarcastic. So now the database of what people said in a sarcastic tone in text is online, which is awesome. So if you want to teach an AI how to understand sarcasm, there is a 1.3 million remark database available to you, and every line of it's sarcastic.
Okay, that'll be good to have.
Yeah, I know. Not a great story, but I had to come up with something. No one was adding stuff to the list.
Nobody. I added absolutely nothing. I think I have one card on here, and I just did that. Do we even still have it on? My Trello. I can't even click around Trello right now. My Trello tab. I'm gonna cancel the tab and reopen Trello. I can't even move cards around. I can't do anything. Let me see if I can get back to it here. You know, next story. What's the next story?
So you've heard the term "free as in beer" versus "free as in freedom."
Right. It's very popular in the open source world.
Yeah. So free as in beer, meaning someone providing you a service or good for free. Mm-hmm. Free as in freedom, meaning free speech, freedom of expression, that kind of thing.
Could typically go in and view the source code, modify the source code, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, for a long time, the MP3 codec, which was created by Fraunhofer Labs, was not free. They sort of, when it came to the internet, got the short end of the stick. Everyone just took it and acted like it was theirs. But when it came to hardware, MP3 decoding and encoding integration cost you money. So if you wanted to make a sound card that could do MP3 processing, you had to fork over cash. Well, as of April 23rd, that is no longer the case. So
what? So they just generously opened it up to the world?
No, they're not quite generous. They are ending their licensing program due to no longer holding the patent for it.
The patent that had expired, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So It is now free, as in beer and freedom. You can grab the source, I believe, or the algorithm, and you can use it as much as you'd like to. And
So I think if I understood the story correctly, and I didn't read the post you had, I just had listened to this on other podcasts, and again, my Trello is just not loading at all. Um, they had the option. They could have continued to extend their patent. I mean, it's the whole Mickey Mouse thing, right? It's the patent never really expires if they want to keep extending it. But
right.
they had come to the conclusion that it had basically run its course, that there are better technologies out there, better compression for audio, and it just wasn't worth them to pursue to keep extending the patent. So to some degree, they were generous in the fact that they said, okay, we're not going to repatent this. We're just going to go ahead and let it expire and open it up for everybody.
Yeah, and it isn't the codec used anymore. It isn't what people are using for basically anything.
Mm-hmm.
But it is the foundation mathematics behind everything in audio compression, in lossy audio compression that's out there right now.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we'll see a nice little boost in streaming file sizes and integration of compression codecs into things that could really use it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. That's cool. Let's see what else we got. We got some release notes from Laravel. So this is the first time I had actually seen this, where Laravel did a security patch of their current version of 5. What are they on 5.4? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think this was patch 5.4.22, if I'm remembering correctly. Is that right?
Yes, 5.4.2.2.
Yeah. Do you understand what the issue is that they're addressing?
They say that it is a phishing attempt mitigation. The password reset notification that is built into the Laravel system now.
So this is when you do the make auth and you do the scaffolding for the Laravel authorization. You have a register, you have a login, and then I guess you have a reset password workflow you can click through.
Yeah, so according to the docs here, since the password reset notification uses the host of the incoming request to build the password reset URL, the host of the password reset URL may be spoofed. If users do not notice that they're not on the intended application's domain, they may accidentally enter their login credentials into a malicious application. So it's a basic change to the hash algorithm that makes sure that spoofing can't occur. Yeah, it's interesting. And there was another big email spoofing issue recently. I'm not sure if you saw the Google Docs one.
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, we had a member of our user group that got hit with this, and he was on IRC and he posted. He says, "Hey, is anybody else getting a notification about Google Docs?" And we're like, "No, nothing had been published about it yet." And we're like, "No." He's like, "I don't know. This looks suspicious. I'm not going to. I'm going to leave it. There's something weird about it." And then maybe 6 hours later, I started seeing tweets and blog posts about this. So can you give us some understanding of what happened there?
So there's a new phishing attack that tried to use you would receive an email that looked like you were given access to a Google Doc. When you opened it, it would ask you to authenticate an application. This application was nefarious. So when you authenticated it, it would go through your contacts and send itself out to everyone on your contacts, as well as do something else unknown with all of the information in your inbox. So
really,
yeah, it wasn't damaging anything, but it looks like they fetched a good number of inbox data from this attack. Google responded pretty quickly and disabled this application specifically so that it couldn't access anything on Gmail, and it removed it from anyone who had it installed on their system or on their account. But it points towards a bigger problem with people just entering their password in when it's requested.
Or the fact that we're getting to a day and age where it's becoming quite common practice to give one of your cloud-hosted applications access to another cloud-hosted application, and people don't always sit there and look at all the permissions it's requiring and whether or not those permissions are actually needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've all kind of gone through, and it's weird because I noticed right after this happened, I don't know if one thing is related to another, but right after this happened, I noticed my Google login changed. The login screen for Google changed.
Yeah, so what they did is they made a change to how they handle OAuth 2 requests. Apparently this used a much older version of the Google OAuth 2, or OAuth, I think OAuth 1 actually, authentication, something that Google has since disabled. But they're also putting steps in place to make sure that OAuth applications are more tightly monitored and regulated. But as with anything Google, they're not really telling us what they're doing. They're just saying we're doing something to make it better.
Okay. So that's no longer a problem. It's been addressed.
No longer a problem, but it because of its ability to send itself to people in your contacts, it spread incredibly fast. And
I mean, this harkens back to the old days of viruses on your computer when you used to have everybody used to have fat email clients that ran on your local desktop, and you'd get a virus and it would go to your address book and start sending out emails to everybody in your address. But this is the exact same thing, but cloud-based.
Right. The last time I remember something on this scale was the I Love You virus. Or Love Bug was the official name for it. And it's just an email that said I love you, and when you opened up the attachment, it sent itself to everyone in your contacts list. And that was a virus that made the front page of Time magazine.
Yep. So bad people never go away. They're always there.
So we last time we talked about the Echo Look.
The mirror, right? The very expensive mirror for Echo. And now you and I are both Echo users. Have you noticed a difference in your Echo? Because I heard Echo got a major upgrade to its speech patterns and recognition, and I went to launch the app on my phone the other day, and there was a whole new interface to it. Have you noticed any of this?
Yeah. So along with the announcement of this new product, which we'll get into in a little bit, they've added calling and messaging between Echo devices. So when you hear it from Amazon, they say we've added calling and messaging to Echo. They don't explain very clearly that it's between other Echo devices. But when you see the new product, it starts to make sense. So the new product is a screen, basically. It's a screen, a nice speaker, and a webcam. And it's called the Echo Show. You can use it to do all the stuff that the higher end Amazon Kindle things can do. So you can watch TV shows and movies through the Amazon service.
Oh, I didn't catch that you could do that. Okay.
Yeah. Well, so the Echo as it stands now, you can ask it to play music from the Amazon Music database. This is just going to extend it further than that and add video. But you can also call another Echo, which is interesting.
It's funny. back in the day, I used to work for Sony Electronics, and one of the most underrated products that they released, or what I felt was a very underrated product that they released, was something called a Sony Dash, and it looked very similar to this Echo Show. It had a lot of the same functionality. You could watch Hulu on it. You could watch Amazon Prime on it. You could watch Netflix on it. It was it was a smart clock, is what it was called back then, and it did the weather. This reminds me so much of the Sony Dash, and I was a huge fan of the Dash. Their timing, Sony's timing on releasing the Dash was actually pretty bad. If I remember correctly, I think they released the Dash, I want to say 2 or 3 months after Apple announced and released the first generation of the iPad. And it's like, once you saw that, it's like, yeah, nobody's going to buy a smart clock now. They have these iPads. And but I was a fan of the Dash. I had a couple of them, and when I saw this Echo, I'm like, holy crap! It's the Sony Dash again, and it's still a good product.
It is an extraordinarily bland design. It's just sort of a tilted triangle.
Right. It's fun. The funny thing about it, did you watch the video?
No.
So it's a marketing video, right? And all these marketing videos are the same, but it cracks me up because the use cases they show is, like, one of them is a guy in the kitchen. He's cleaning some dishes and he decides to call his mom, who's also happens to be in the kitchen. And the device is set up perfectly so that, it's showing them and they're talking to it, and it's just the right distance. And then later on, he's like in his kid's room, and of course he calls his mom again, who's sitting in her living room, and again the devices are all positioned perfectly. And the reality of it is, it's like that's not how it works. You get one of these, you put it somewhere, and if you ever decide you want to use the calling, first thing you do is you text your mom and say, I'm going to call you on the Echo, go to your Echo. And and then you're standing like at a bookshelf because that's where you have the Echo set up, and you're making this call. It's just, I love the marketing people do behind these communication. I mean, Skype is the same way. Hangouts are the same way. iMessenger is the same way. They make it like it's going to be this. Everybody's going to enjoy doing video chat, and it's always going to be these setup scenarios that are so nice. Nobody likes doing video chat. Nobody wants to do video chat. You call somebody on video chat, and they're like, "Oh, why are you video chatting me?" And they turn it off. It's just not a thing. I don't know why so many companies keep trying to do it.
Now, well, I'll tell you, IBM tried to do it, which is why everyone else tries to do it now. IBM tried to do it in the early 90s, and it was a miserable failure. But what's interesting to me, now, have you ever used a Polycom business speakerphone? You know how amazing those things are. Because it is crystal clear from anybody in the room, anywhere in the room, and that is a multi-microphone technology that allows it to properly home in on who's speaking and make sure that they're speaking clearest. And the Echo devices have that technology inherently in them for the listening purposes. So I think you are going to get a surprisingly good call quality as far as audio out of this thing. And the camera is a 5 megapixels, so there's the possibility of doing face tracking and sort of follow me around the room type video stuff. But we'll see. I haven't seen it yet.
So I will say, if you remember me talking a couple podcasts back, and like I said, been spending a lot of time with my dad, who has dementia, and as part of the dementia, there's a couple things that happen. He gets very confused. He doesn't understand where he's at in time and space, and he doesn't realize who's passed in the family or where he's at exactly. So every day with him is a series of questions that he asks, and he repeats the question over and over again. And I'd shared with you the idea of taking a Raspberry Pi, which I've been putting together, and if you look at it, looks very similar to the Echo Show. I had gotten a Raspberry Pi that I'd gotten a touchscreen display for, and I was going to start working on putting a camera on it, putting speakers on it, and coding it up so that my dad could ask it the questions that he has a tendency to ask every day, and that it would give the response for him so that he wouldn't have to, bother asking people. Or sometimes there aren't even people in the room and he's asking what time is it, what day it is, and there's nobody there with him. So I was going to start coding it. After seeing this Echo, I'm not completely opposed to that, because they have developer kits for Echo that you can write to. So I'm going to have to look into this a little bit more. It's a little pricey. So this entire Raspberry Pi right now, with the touchscreen on it, with the case, I think I'm at about 110. Now I'm still missing the camera, and I'm still missing the speaker. But that's not going to cost me much more. And I think the Echo Show you can pre-order right now is at like $220 or something. But of course, you have the whole powering of Amazon behind it and the whole Echo platform to build on. So there is that.
So you can buy a 2-pack, which comes in at $180 per unit.
Yeah. So
it's
not
bad.
It's something to keep an eye on. Yeah. And again, my mother who doesn't have dementia, but she's definitely older, has trouble with technology. For her to have the ability to tell this device just to call me, and then it being able to call me, is appealing. And keep in mind, it doesn't need to call another Echo Show. It might, unless I'm not understanding it correctly, the calling capability is something you can do between all the Echoes.
Yeah, the Dot, the regular Alexa, Echo, and even the virtual devices. If you want to spin up a fake Echo device, you can. I'm gonna have to put a disclaimer on this on the beginning of this one for people to let them know that we say Echo about 100 times.
Oh, that's true. Well, we don't say the A word though. Alexa?
No, but mine responds to the word Echo, so it's just been in the corner freaking out. Now, the thing we didn't mention is that this has a camera, and my same concerns about always watching do come up. And one thing that bugs me about it is that the camera is front and center with no little plastic slider to just turn it off, to just cover the camera.
Electrical tape.
That's what the CIA does.
Yeah.
But I think it's crazy this day and age to release a device with a camera that's always on and not have a sliding plastic cover for it. I think that's something people apparently want. All right.
You would think, but how often do you see that?
Every day. No, I don't leave my house.
No, I think about laptops that are released. No, you don't. Laptops that are being released now? What? I can think of a couple of laptops that have that ability, that have a hard cover on the camera, but majority of them don't. I don't think Apple's do. I don't think any Apple does.
Well, no. That would ruin the aesthetic.
That's right. All right, we've spent too much time on this story. Let's move on.
Alrighty. Let me kill this. There we go. Throw it all the way down in the bottom of the show notes. I read an interesting article about PHP performance, Now, since 7 came out, I don't really concern myself with performance. Well, since I don't have to do sysadmin anymore, I don't concern myself with performance. But this is an interesting article about having more cores in your CPU versus having faster cores in your CPU.
Okay.
So, as I think most people know, PHP is a single-threaded application. You can't split off a thread.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
And the way that PHP is generally configured, it doesn't try to create a new process to handle incoming requests unless it's hit some sort of max ceiling. So this guy, Hayden James, looked into CPU usage and PHP performance and found that having a low speed, high core machine was not as good as having faster cores. Which
makes sense. For PHP, it makes sense.
Right, for PHP it makes sense, but that is the opposite of Intel's sort of general advertising on CPUs for servers. Intel, as you go more cores, you go more expensive but slower on the CPU speed. So it's actually more beneficial to have fewer cores at a higher speed, because you can get a single core from Intel now or from AMD that is 50% faster for a pretty low price.
So fewer cores, faster CPUs.
Yeah, faster CPUs, fewer cores. Yeah, he was seeing
not necessarily fewer cores, but if you have to sacrifice between cores and speed, always lean towards speed.
Right. It's when you're looking at the breakdown of cost versus gain, your gain on CPU speed is much more cost efficient.
Cool.
So we'll have that full breakdown. He doesn't go as in depth as I wish he did, but he gives us a good number of simulated tests that we can look at.
Cool. You mentioned show notes. Probably a good opportunity to bring good area to bring this up. So we're moving off SoundCloud. When I started working with the guys over at Lair Chat Live, one of the things Diego Dev did is we offered to host a audio version of their podcast so that they can publish to iTunes and things like that. And PHP Ugly we were already established, and we were using SoundCloud to host our audio streams, which was good. I mean, it integrated with. It didn't integrate. It created an RSS feed, which is all you need for things like iTunes and the Google Play Store. But it didn't really. SoundCloud isn't really set up for podcasts, right? And so what I would basically do is I would do show notes in GitHub. We'd have our GitHub repo. I would copy those show notes and I'd put them in SoundCloud because, I wanted that text there, but it never really displayed well. Like SoundCloud couldn't manage Markdown, and it wasn't a very good looking interface. And then I would also take that SoundCloud iframe and post it on the phpugly.com website, again with the show notes. So show notes would end up in 3 locations. We'd publish to SoundCloud. I'd pull that SoundCloud over to PHP Ugly. It was just kind of a mess, a lot of steps. Well, with Lair Chat Live, I looked into another service called Simplecast, and was really happy with it. It allowed me to put everything in the same place. Well, when our thing expired with SoundCloud, which it expires here, I think next week, I just went ahead and canceled that, and I've moved PHP Ugly over to Simplecast now. So now, if you go to www.phpugly.com, you hit our Simplecast page, and that's where everything's going to live moving forward. It'll be as our website. It'll be where the show notes are. You can listen to the podcast there on the website, or it'll continue to feed into. We've updated the endpoints in iTunes and Google Play already. I looked on Google Play. We have exactly 0 subscribers on Google Play.
Perfect.
I don't know how many we have on iTunes. I still don't think the majority of the people know you can listen to podcasts on Google Play, much less that many people listening to Google Play in general.
I can tell you, iTunes, we have at least 14 subscribers.
Nice. So yeah, so moving forward, everything's going to be at www.phpugly.com. I think it also phpugly.simplecast.fm also takes you to the same location, and everything will be right there. Show notes, embedded player, all that. So just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, we're going to have to make sure we put something up on SoundCloud to let people know that we've moved it over.
Yeah, I don't even know how you would do that. That's part of the problem with SoundCloud. Maybe I can put it in the profile. Just say, yeah, move to our new location. And that was the cool thing about Simplecast. I just pointed it to our SoundCloud public URL, not even any special private API endpoint key, nothing. I just pointed it to the public URL. It scraped it, pulled down all the past shows, pulled down all the information about the past shows, and populated its own database with it, and we're off and running.
Well, I have another interesting tool for you here.
Go ahead.
With the worst URL I've seen in a long time.
Okay.
The tool is called Composer CI. Continuous Integration for Composer.
Composer Continuous Integration. Okay. What's the URL that's so terrible?
composerci.miguelpidrafita.com.
Okay.
I get that he wants his name attached to the project, but probably shouldn't.
Buy a domain, dude. Seriously.
Yeah. And it takes the continuous integration concepts and sort of applies them to your dependencies in your project. So every day, you basically give your Composer file over to it. Every day, it reads your Composer file, checks all your dependencies for newer versions, and notifies you if your Composer file is out of date.
Okay.
It integrates into GitHub and generates a pull request to update your Composer JSON with the new dependencies whenever it finds one. And it's supposedly Semver aware, so it knows that something is or isn't a compatible dependency.
I don't know. Doesn't seem that useful to me.
It's interesting. I don't know if it's incredibly useful, but I could imagine being a dev with 20 projects that I just didn't want to deal with maintaining every Composer file for every project. If you're
but I mean, isn't that? I mean, I guess. Well, I guess if there's security patches that have to happen, I was say typically. I mean, that's a matter of a deployment, right? You deploy, but you don't typically just go periodically and do Composer update to a deployed application.
No, in my environment, Composer update is verboten. You don't run it.
Right. Well, and that's pretty typical. I mean, that's the whole reason why you commit your Composer lock file to your repo now, because you want to make sure that it's a known version of of the packages that are being installed. So you always do a composer install. You don't typically do a composer update unless it's part of the development process and you want to run your test against it. I just don't. I don't know. I mean, sure. I guess there would be people out there that want to use this. I don't know if it's that all that appealing to me.
Well, I think of the Laravel Collective when I look at it. Something.
You drink that Kool-Aid?
Oh, absolutely. With my little cat tentacle arms. No, I think of something that an open source developer in charge of maintaining might want to keep an eye on it without having to constantly keep an eye on it. You know, for a lot of open source projects, that's just one guy maintaining it and 100 people using it. That you don't look at your project every single day, and you don't want to have to.
I suppose so, yeah.
And from what I can tell, it's just a free service. So there are instances where why not, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Next.
Burning through. I use Tinker. Do you use Tinker?
I am a huge fan of Tinker. I tinker a lot.
Artisan Tinker is a REPL, read eval print loop.
Nice. So for listeners who might not be familiar, Tinker is a package that comes with Laravel, and it allows you to drop into a command line within your application. So you have your Laravel application deployed, you fire up Tinker, and you're able to leverage your models, your controllers from this command line interface called Tinker. It's super powerful tool. It's great for testing, like if you have relationships defined in your model and you want to make sure when you do a fetch, eager loading is loading, what you think it's loading. It's a great tool for that. I love Tinker.
Yeah, Tinker, whenever I'm getting a headache with one specific line in my code, I will just copy and paste that line and go into Tinker and run it over and over and over, changing one character at a time. It gets a lot of use on model changes because it is just a command line interface. But I also use it a lot when I'm developing API clients. When I get an API from somebody and they say, here's our endpoints, just curl them, I say, okay, and I pop open curl in Tinker, and I start executing everything per their instructions, which are universally bad. I don't know what the problem is with people writing APIs. If you write an API, you're writing a document first and then a program second. Because if your document and program don't match, it is an immediate failure. It's your document should be your test case for your API. That's a brilliant idea. Have your document be your PHP unit tests for your API.
That's what the services are.
Yeah. What's the canary one that we talked about? Apiary.
Yeah, Apiary. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's the big one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that service is amazing. I wish I had more opportunity to use it.
Yeah, that's that's almost the exact philosophy behind it. You mock out your API endpoints, you test against it, that becomes your document, and then you're off and running.
Yeah, it's like TDD++.
Yeah.
It creates fake endpoints for you too, so you can write the client as well. Anyways, Tinker, which I've used for a while now, just knowing that I can type something into it and it'll pipe something out to me, but I've never looked into it a whole lot. And I've got this article published on Titan Co, and it is fantastic. It breaks down everything you should know about Tinker. It has improved ways of dumping data. It has it has a way for for a command line program to dump into Tinker. Did you see that?
I did, yeah.
That's amazing. It's
Yeah.
like putting a breakpoint in at the point of execution. It's so cool. There are so many amazing tricks in this one article. It explains the history of Tinker, that it's a fork of the Psi-SH or Psi shell.
Right. I think that's part of Symphony, is if I'm not mistaken.
No, this is part of Bob the Cow. This is a
Oh, that's
independent.
right. That's yeah. I remember hearing that. Yeah. Now we should say this is different than the what's it called, the interactive shell for PHP, which was what's that 5.5. Did that come in 5.4 or 5.5 or 5.6? Anyways, PHP now has an interactive shell that you can drop into. The thing that separates Tinker from that is, as I explained before, it loads up your classes, it loads up your models, and so with a Laravel application, you can throw in eloquent statements and get your results. It's very nice. So
Yeah, it's like you're inside of an instance of Laravel. There are some annoyances about having to type in the full namespaces for things that he addresses at the very bottom here. It has tab support for auto completion. He has methods in here for having config files that load up your preferences whenever you use Tinker. I mean, I'm totally stunned at what Tinker can do that I had no idea. You can type doc and then a method name, and it'll pull up the PHP docs for that method.
that's crazy.
The coolest stuff. If you go to any of the links in this show, go to this one because it is a fantastic article. It's a 7-minute read. It is a tool that I have had for a long time and never known that it could do this much.
Cool.
So I'm throwing that out to everybody. What are we at? How much time we got here? 53 minutes.
Right on schedule, man.
We've masterfully wasted time. But you know what it means when we hit the 50-minute mark.
Doom and gloom, right?
Yeah, it's time for the doom and gloom.
I thought you already did doom and gloom. I thought that was the Google thing.
Yeah, you bumped that forward. You tangented, so I pulled it in.
Oh, damn. Okay. What's our doom and gloom for this week?
Like all doom and glooms, I have a secret mystery article that I did not put on the list.
Okay.
But first, we've talked a lot. We've talked a lot about the Internet of Things botnets, the horrific nightmare that is Internet of Things, and how much I hate it and how terrible it is.
I was going to say, we didn't talk a lot about it. You have spoken a lot about it, yes.
For example, currently available on Kickstarter. I'm sorry, not Kickstarter, the one that sucks. What's it called?
Indiegogo or
Indiegogo. Yeah, Indiegogo, right. which no one should ever use. Indiegogo now has the smart salt shaker.
Okay.
It is a salt shaker that you can play music on, and it has blinking lights to entertain your guests.
Okay.
Another thing for a botnet to horribly ruin. But there's an interesting new botnet out there. Well, maybe not even new. There's an interesting botnet out there that's confounding a lot of people. It's called Hajime.
Hajime. All right.
It is currently around 300,000 devices infected. It is a self-propagating P2P worm, and it is continually under development. It's getting new exploits patched in. It's getting new functionality patched into it. But one of the interesting things about it is that it's patching IoT devices.
Okay.
So many of the victims of this botnet are finding their routers suddenly more secure. There's not a lot known about who's running the botnet, why they're running the botnet, but there are messages that do get displayed on some of these compromised devices, such as just a white hat securing some systems. Important messages will be signed like this: Hajime author. Contact closed, stay sharp.
Do we think it's an actual white hat botnet, or
We do. We think it is a for real white hat botnet, which to me is one of the most cyberpunk things ever, that is hunting down easily exploited rogue devices and patching them.
So you want to hear a funny story?
I would love to.
All right. So I worked with this guy back in the day. Nice guy, email administrator, and he ran.
You just
a
said
server.
nice guy and email administrator.
Yeah, nice guy, email administrator. You know,
For an email administrator.
and he ran a web server out of his house. Pretty powerful web server. He was serving up websites, and which most web servers do. And he was charging, a nominal fee to host people's websites, and not a big deal. Well, I shared a cube with this guy, and one day, he says, "Huh, that's weird. It looks like one of my configuration files have been changed." And I think it was, it might have even been like something like IP tables. He's like, I need this stuff open because whatever reason he had, he wanted to have these vulnerable ports open. And it might have even been FTP at the time. It might have been port 23. So didn't think much about it. He went ahead and fixed the configuration and went on with his day. And a couple of days later, he's like, "Hey, Eric, man," he's like, "that configuration reverted itself. Does Linux have some sort of default config that it loads up?" And I'm like, "No, not that I'm aware of." I'm like, "Are you sure you're not doing something that's overwriting the config?" He's like, "No." So he changes it again and goes on with his day. Another day passes, and sitting there in the queue, because Eric, he's like, there's a text file in my home directory. I'm like, "What?" And he opens it up, and it's from a hacker. He says, "Hey, man," he's like, "I'm trying to keep your server secure for you." He's like, "I'm using it for a couple things. I promise I won't do anything bad, but you should have these things. You shouldn't be doing these things. They're not secure. They're how I got in." And I'm like, "Holy crap, dude." So he continued for a couple of days having this conversation back and forth with this person who had compromised his system. And the whole time they're having a conversation by placing text files in his home directory. And it was he's like, "What do you think I should do?" I'm like, "The dude hacked your server. Do you really think he's not doing anything malicious with it?" It was just like this.
I can believe that.
Yeah, okay. I mean, maybe the guy was genuinely a white hat hacker who was, but why would he have been using the server without permission? First thing.
Tell me the year.
Oh, this had to have been early 2000, like 01, 02.
He was hosting an FTP site.
Well, no, I think FTP was the one thing he kept closing. I think he kept closing the FTP port because he felt it was vulnerable or whatever. If I remember correctly, that is what had alerted my friend. Yeah, I think he might have even been trying to do it. I think it was porn. I think the guy was hosting porn or doing something with porn. But yeah, it was. irregardless, the guy was on the server without permission. Yeah, you don't do that. No, white hat or not, you're not a white hat hacker at that point. You know what I mean? I mean, you're just
you're a gray hat.
Yeah. So I always that's event has always stuck with me all through my years of doing system administration. I'm always on the lookout for text files in my home directory. It's the weirdest thing.
I think that's it. Is that it?
Is that it?
Nope.
I don't know. You said you had something else.
Intel patches a remote execution hole that has been in their chips since 2010.
Yes, I saw that. I didn't read about it, but I saw that.
So this not getting a lot of coverage on the standard tech media. It's just sort of getting an article, and people are looking at it and going, "I can't understand anything here." But the higher level of Intel chip is the vPro suite of processors or processor features. vPro supports something called AMT, Active Management Technology, Standard Manageability, ISM, and Small Business Technology. And this is all firmware, so this is all part of the chip's core logics. Unfortunately, AMT doesn't check the password when you try to use the management console.
Seems like a minor issue.
And this was actually found by researchers years ago. So this article here from the Register likes to say it's been hidden in the chips since 2010. It's been hidden since 2014-ish until someone publicly started looking into this and sending messages to Intel saying, "Come on, dude, come on, fix this, fix this, fix this." And Intel basically said, not enough people know about it yet, so we're not gonna. But finally, these researchers got pissed off and issued a public statement saying, if Intel's not going to fix it, here's what you do. And this is almost every Intel chip since 2010.
Wow, that is crazy.
Yeah, and this goes all the way up to, if you're a hardware person, all the way up to the Kaby Lake cores. So this is the modern Intel chipsets. If you have AMT enabled on your machine, then you're vulnerable. People can basically log in without a password and gain full control of your CPU from that point. One part of the issue being that the activity on AMT doesn't get logged because it's at the CPU level. It's not running on your operating system, it's running on the chip. So there's no knowledge of how long this exploit has been known by black hat elements and been taken advantage of. There hasn't been a virus that used it to replicate. There hasn't been a large breach that indicates that this was the source of the breach. Intel's just saying there wasn't a problem until now, and now we're patching it, so don't worry. But it's entirely possible in the case of government tech operations, probable that this has been a known problem for a long time, and that larger hacker groups have been using it to compromise servers which are using the AMT technology. So, yeah, it's the first talk about this vulnerability was by Igor Skoczynski in 2014. And It's something. This is a feature set that people have been complaining about for a long time. But yeah, that's just scary stuff.
That's what you're here for, man.
That's
You're
what I
here
do.
to expose the scary stuff, and people like it. The fans like it.
The fans love it.
I get more feedback talking about doom and gloom, wanting more doom and gloom.
You know what? I'm gonna be putting in a kicker, an audio kicker for the doom and gloom segment. Gonna throw some vaporwave music in there.
You're kicking it up a notch, are you?
I am. I'm letting my editing game slip, becoming too comfortable.
All right. Well, I think you've got enough to edit this week. How do you feel? You think we're ready to wrap this one up?
Yeah, shame we couldn't hear from John this week, but
Not really. Not really.
he won't make it to the end of this podcast anyways.
All right. Well, we got one more show, and then it's going to be PHP Tech, which I'm taking, like I said, I'm taking my hardware out with me for PHP Tech. We're going to be doing a podcast out there, so I don't see any reason why we can't get together and do a podcast. It'll probably just be you and myself. I know John's going out there with his family, so probably in the afternoons he'll
as
hang
one
out with
does when taking a vacation from the family. Bring the family.
They bring him along.
Yeah, that's what you do. I'll never understand that. He's too driven.
We'll see how tech goes. See how the after conference events are, and whether or not I have time and feel like it. But again,
you say time, but you mean if you've had enough to drink or too much to drink. It's going to be a really fine line. I've been to these events.
Drink is not an issue. No, man, Laracast at Laracon US last year, I left the bar, came back to my hotel room, did a show of PHP Ugly with you, went back to the bar. I mean, that's how you roll at these conferences, baby.
Could have just stayed at the bar.
That's true. All right. If you run into me or John, we'll both be equipped with some PHP Ugly stickers and pins. Please ask for a pin. I really need to get rid of these. I don't know what I'm going to do with all these PHP Ugly pins. Ask for a sticker and pin, and you will have that. I'll also have, if you're interested, some Larachat stickers with me. So if you want a Larachat sticker, let me know that as well. We had a good Larachat today, Thomas. We talked about Docker and Vagrant, so might want to give that a listen. But I won't go too much into that. And I think we're good for today. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. You just replied to somebody on Twitter. While we were talking.
What? Did you actually think you were retaining my interest?
I'm a little
talking
heartbroken.
about Intel, talking about a 4-year vulnerability in an Intel chip. You think I was actually going to keep paying attention to that? Look at the post.
I looked. We're going to have to talk about this next week because we've if you're a longtime listener, you'll remember us talking about Windows entering the Linux era a long time ago, and that's what's happening.
It's expanding. It's expanding, man. That's some goofy stuff. I'm telling you, I'm getting more and more on the fence about re-entering the realm of Windows.
You know, if you do that, you can play games with me because Macs don't have games.
I don't play games. I'm not a gamer. Never been.
Because you have a Mac.
I like watching people play games.
That's like living in Utah and saying I'm not much of a drinker. Yeah, you live in Utah.
I don't have time for games, man. I got podcasts to do. I got companies to run. I got no time for games.
I'll turn you.
Oh gosh. All right, that's it. I'm calling it.
All right, that's it.
No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. You keep cutting my wrap ups. No, you keep cutting my wrap ups out. You've taken the power of the editor way too far.
I have never cut any of your outros out.
Every week you do it.
It's a gentle fade out.
I'm Eric Van Johnson.
I'm Tom Rideout.
Keep it ugly.
Alrighty. In the books.
I couldn't click anything in my browser, and I was after a while I got too scared to even try to click anything in the browser.
So crash Zencastr.
Yeah, exactly. So my Trello was completely foobarb. I couldn't do anything with Trello.
Oh.
I couldn't even open the cards that you were talking about. It was frustrating as hell.
We covered it. You did